right. Good evening, everyone. I was about to say good morning. And hope you're all doing well as we filter in here. So just give it one more minute and then we'll get started. I always like to get started right on time because I really appreciate you joining us this evening. So I want to make sure I get as much information to you in a timely fashion as possible. While we wait for a few more people to filter in, I want to introduce myself. So my name is Michael Wagner. I'm the founder of Wagner Prep, and I've been working in high school education, college admissions, working with teens for nearly 2 decades. And This is college admissions is a big part of what we do here at Wagner Prep. Alongside us tonight is Megan Fisk, who is our relationships manager. She'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions that we maybe aren't addressing directly, we'll have time for questions and answers at the back end. So you can throw it in there so we don't forget. And then also, if you ever want to ask about any kind of services that we provide, Megan's the person to ask. And then additionally, you're going to be hearing from Sebastian Suarez, who is our college admissions, or one of our college admissions counselors. And Sebastian has been working with us for over a year. He has admissions experience and then has really been helpful with students coaching up their essays, getting them to find stories that they wouldn't have thought of as a material for college essays. So, that's the team that you have today. We are now at 7:02, 7:03, so now we can throw that first slide up, and we will get started. All right. So, good evening, everyone, and thanks again for coming. Today, we're going to talk about how to write a standout college essay. It's really important that students come up with a well thought out idea and then flush it out, something that really kind of shows growth. But the problem here is that oftentimes there's such pressure to have something that is standout that it makes students procrastinate. So what we're going to do today is walk through some of the timelines and then also um, uh, look at some topics to hit on or some topics to avoid. We're also going to be using something called Mentimeter. It's just a way to make things a little bit more interactive. If you just go to this website, menti.com, and enter that code, it'll bring you right to this presentation. You can follow along there, but it also gives us little moments to kind of engage with you as an audience, to find out where you are in this process and to kind of see what everyone's thinking on the like from your perspective. So that is the code, and it's also on the top. It'll come up again a few other times if we need. We can also maybe put that in the chat, Megan, just so that we like if anyone needs it, we always have it there. But yeah, it's a cool. You could do it on your phone as well, just so you can follow along in that way, and it should be pretty straightforward from there. If you have questions about it, ask it in the chat. All right. So to begin with, the first question: deadlines, timelines. What are we dealing with? So June, this is the time that the focus turns away from school and onto the college admissions process. Typically, what we're dealing with is typically what we're dealing with is um, uh, the Common App personal statement at this moment, and our internal timeline is to try to get it to done by July 15th. This is an arbitrary date. We just throw this out there in Wagner Prep just to try to get kids moving in the right direction. Some essays take a little bit longer to develop. Their stories aren't there. Other ones need can be done, by the July 4th holiday. It really depends on the student, but we try to push them hard on that in that sense because it's the number one thing that students procrastinate on by far in this whole college admissions process. So July 15th is our own internal deadline. August 1st, technically the Common App opens. So that's just a good date to kind of keep in your mind for this. That's also then when most schools will release the supplemental essays, which will also be part and parcel to this process. And then in general, the earliest deadline for college admissions is October 15th, although generally the early decision, early action deadline tends to be November 1st or November 15th, depending. Of course, you have rolling admissions too, but those are the other ones to kind of keep in mind. October 15th, or if you're applying to schools in the South, or November 1st for the typical early decision, early action deadline. So, backing it up to the essay, that's why we really try to push in June and July to get your essay done so that you can focus on the supplementals in August, September, October. So let's get a sense of where things are right now. So this is why we use the Mentimeter platform. So it would be great and if you could throw in the Menti where you're at in the process right now. If you're just getting started, you don't even know what's going on, no college list, no essays, no nothing yet. Choose that option. If you're kind of have a list but not nothing else, that makes total sense. Sometimes high schools will assign the Common App essay. So their junior year teacher is now assigning that as a project to work on. So sometimes students do have essay drafts, which it looks like there's definitely some students that have the essay draft. And then, all right, so then you're thinking about the college list. So it seems like at least some of us have like the an essay draft. Some of us have the beginnings, a draft of a college list. But it seems like we're getting started and not too many of us have the list done. So, all right, we're early in the process. Awesome. This is really helpful. So, this is just a nice kind of synthesis of what I was saying. Try to get the essay done really before August. We want to start in June, get it, revised and edited in July so that August 1st, the Common App opens up and you can begin those supplemental essays. All right. So, the next slide is a really important, or the next topic is a really important one. It's how essays are read. So, as I mentioned, Sebastian worked in an admissions office at a big public flagship university. And so he was one of the students that would, one of the advisor or admissions reps who would be reading these essays. So I'll pass the mic over to Sebastian and let you take this section away.
Sure. Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Again, my name's Sebastian, and like Mike said, before Wagner Prep, I was actually on the other side of the essay reading. I was a regional reader in the international admissions office at a big public university in the US. So the essays that you're imagining your student writing right now and the drafts that you're seeing, those are the ones that landed on my desk, stacks of them. And I mean, literally stacks and stacks. You'd come in, you'd have your queue of files, you'd pour your coffee, and you'd read for the whole day. So one thing I want to say up front, because it really matters, is that every admissions office, whether it's a small private university, big public institution, state school or non-state school, they run this a little differently. They all have their own processes, their own number of readers, and like they all follow different rhythms. So what I'm going to show you is what it looked like for me at a big public, kind of the broad strokes, right? So it holds up to a certain extent pretty much everywhere. That first line you see on the screen right under the title, and that's really this whole section in one sentence, right? So I'll let it do its job. Like, what can I add is that those three stages look like from my chair, right? Because I lived it for a couple of years. So I'll be honest with you, we read really fast. I mean, if you're the first reader, you are reading for the first few sentences, you're reading for a hook because there are hundreds of files that keep coming, right? So when you see a hook and a clear arc from there, here's what that means in practice, right? Within the first couple of lines, my brain has already decided whether I'm reading or I'm skimming. And you can really feel this like in the first instance, a flat opening, you know what it looks like. And a real hook, you're sitting up a little bit on your chair and you actually want to know a little bit more. The second stage is where the essay kind of starts to earn its keep and its weight in your application. So your transcript will tell us what your student did, but the essay really will tell us who they are. And it's really when those two kind of click together, the activities, recommendation letters, and the essay, they stop becoming separate documents, and really we get a better read of you as one coherent person, right? So I can suddenly picture this kid on campus, how they're going to be involved, what kind of roles they're going to be taking. And that's kind of what this slide is talking about, right? But then it moves up the chain. It goes to a committee, in my experience. This is the stage that parents usually don't hear much about. When a file really sits on the line, it goes into a room and gets talked about. So this is, your essay gets put aloud with other people who all have opinions. And, this is the part where, two kids with nearly identical transcripts, someone literally could read a paragraph of the essay in the room, people react to it. So if you have this is might take you apart, right? That paragraph or that first section or your essay itself could be that tiebreaker, I could say. Now, fair warning, right? A beautiful essay can't be, it can't rescue a transcript that's out of range, that's not in target for you. So the numbers will open the doors for you, but once your student is in that range, right? It's really the essay that can help you stand out in our offices. Which brings me to the next section, and one that I like to talk about a lot. In my work with students now at Wagner Prep, I start from beginning to end in this process, and something you hear a lot is topics that come in over and over again. And I promise whatever topic your student is circling, you're going to feel so much better about it 5 minutes from now, because even overdone topics can be rephrased and, re-angled to, make that really shine in your student's profile. So before I get into it, I would like to know from our audience, what do you think are some topics that are overdone? Some cliches, some topics that, land on my desk as an admissions officer back then, and maybe some topics that sports hero, of course, with athletes.
I'm really curious of what
Me
this
too.
word cloud's going to be.
I'm excited. Sports, yeah. Well, I work with a lot of athletes, and this is such a common one. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth on how we deal with this. Only child, family dynamics comes up. Trauma dump, very important. Grandparents, right? The story of family. Maybe your grandparents immigrated from somewhere. The desire to learn. And these are awesome, and it's validating everything that's about to come. So that's great. Good to see
Yeah.
it. Awesome. Travel, of course, right? Service trips, trips back to your great grandparents are from. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So let's move on. Awesome. This is cool. All right. So I think everyone got it correct. Good job, everyone. So does this look familiar? I'm not going to read these out loud to you, but right here, between your word cloud that we just made and this slide, you basically wrote it yourselves. The only one that I'll call out is the bottom right, I guess, is like virtue signaling through volunteering, which is a polite name for the essay that's really just like, look of how good of a person I am, which we try to avoid, right? And it makes sense that these come up over and over again, because these are really topics that are the biggest things that happen in a teenager's life, right? We're not asking teenagers to come up with their own life-changing cancer medications or anything like this. These are 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and because these are generally the biggest things that had happened to them. The injury was a really devastating thing, right? The move really did change everything in your life, and of course these are the topics that our students come with, which is why the most important words is like what you see on top, is that these are not bad topics. It's really all about the framing. So here's what happens, right? A student hears the word overdone or cliche when in our first sessions, and they panic because it might make their most meaningful experience feel like it's hindering them from making it the topic. Or, if it's genuinely your grandmother and that you really want to talk about her, and that's when we get into, okay, what we're going to change is the telling, and the telling is completely within your students' control, how we tell the story, right? So why do these essays blend in, right? The headline says it, and the word I want to unpack from that second line is movement, right? Because Nobody in an admissions office is ranking whose championship was bigger than the other or whose hardship was harder. There's no ranking system that exists internally there. What an admissions reader is really hungry for is like a shift, like a moment where your student sees the world actually change, or a moment of introspection, even a small one, right? Or I would say especially a small one. Because honestly, small and true will beat big and generic every single day of these reading sessions. So the best way I've heard this explained, and I'm stealing this from Mike here, is superhero movies. Okay, bear with me. Think about the first Iron Man, right? Great movie. And it's small. It's basically one guy, one suit, one villain. You figuring out who is. You're leaning in the whole time. And then what happens with every sequel, right? They change the stakes, they grow the stakes. There's more villains, bigger explosions, and by the third movie, the fate of the universe is on the line. And there's 16 characters on screen, and you can barely keep track of who's who. And the strange part is that the bigger it gets, the less you feel connected to Iron Man. So because you were never watching for the explosions, right? You were watching for the guy in the cave, like the really small human stuff. And once that's gone, no amount of things falling from the sky and explosions are going to bring that feeling of humanness back. So I really like this example. We use these analogies with our kids all the time. It's a really good one. So your student's essay works the exact same way. The reader doesn't need the fate of the universe. They need one small moment where something actually shifts, right? And how your kid sees the world. And that's the whole game. And like that's the nice side effect, right? For everyone worrying that their kid hasn't been through something dramatic enough, that doesn't it doesn't your kid doesn't need a tragedy to have an essay. An ordinary normal Tuesday with real movement, it's gonna beat the biggest moment, told in a flat way. So I like this quote a lot. So here's an example, right? Let me prove it to you with the grandparent example that came up a lot in the word cloud. Um, so the same subject, my family sacrificed everything so I could succeed, the typical version. And look, that sentence is true for so many families, and something that in my sessions with students, I would like to highlight if it's an important part of your life, right? It's heartfelt, and but at the same time, it's the opening line for thousands of essays. Every single year, I can tell you from reading it, your eyes kind of just slide at this if you're in that skimming phase, right? That I was explaining. You've read the rest of the essay before you even get to the rest of it because you know what it's going to be. So here's the exact same story, but with a different angle. So listen to this. Struggling to find the word mortgage in Polish at the age of 14, I realized financial translator was never a job I applied for. So if you feel that, right, it's the same family, it's the same feeling of sacrifice, it's the same love. But now I'm the reader and I can see this kid, right? 14 years old, he's at the kitchen table, bank documents spread out. And they're the ones in the house that can do this, right? And the reader gets this immediate sense of what role this kid has played in the family. So there's a specific moment, a specific word, a little bit of humor, right? And an entire family story folded into one sentence. And notice what that specificity does, right? Mortgage, it's the Polish language, 14 years old, three very concrete details. And suddenly I'm a reader and the movie's playing in my head, right? That's the vividness that we strive for, right? That's what wakes a reader up at essay number 45 at 5 p.m. when you're trying to go home. This will wake you up, right? The reader fills in the sacrifice for themselves, and that's going to land way, way harder. And the whole trick here is it's not getting rid of your subject, it's just reframing the lens. So every one of those overdone topics, all of the ones on the word cloud that we made, they can receive the same exact treatment and yield awesome results. All right. So how does your student actually find that angle? Three questions on screen are tools that we use, right? And not necessarily these exact questions, but kind of related to them. And parents, you can screenshot this slide. We're going to send a lot of this after the fact. But because these are like dinner table questions, I think. This is the part of the process where, families really get to writing a single word for them or stressing about the topic, right? You get to be the curious audience, and kind of these are your lines. Take the first one, right? Everyone on the team, lost the same championship, for example. 20 kids experienced the same loss, right, at the soccer match. But what did your kid specifically notice? Maybe it's what the goalie did on the bus ride home. Maybe they noticed something was off with the support on the sidelines. That part belongs only to them. And that noticing is the essay and what I try to draw out of students, right? Is that specificity. The second one is that movement question that we've been circling all night, right? Anyone can recap an event, chronology, the play by play. And that's exactly the part every other applicant with the same story will write, right? The shift here is thinking is like the part only your student can write because it happened inside their head, right? It belongs to them. And that these are the kind of questions that help bring out this like detail. I think the third one is my favorite because students in my experience, edit out their best material constantly, right? It feels too small, it feels too weird, or too embarrassing to mention, right? Sometimes the word mortgage in Polish, right? For example, the thing they were actually thinking about during this big moment of being the family financial translator. So let's hone in, right? So when your kid says, well, there's this one thing, but it's kind of random, that's it, right? Let's chase that. That random thing is almost always the essay, or from those random things come the best essays that I worked on, right? And if you want a little coaching on how to use these, ask them in the car, ask them over dinner, ask one at a time, right? That moment that feels like an interview, these questions kind of dry up, right? But if it sparks genuine curiosity, the details are gonna start coming, and these details are gold, right? So now that you know how your essays get read, you know that the angle is what does the work, which leaves the obvious question, where do we get this material from, if not from just dinner table conversations? How do you generate these moments on demand, right? Instead of just staring blankly and starting anew every time. That's exactly what a content bank does. And Mike is going to talk to you a little bit about how we use content banks for our students.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. So yeah, the in the car is always a good place, especially for the young men in the audience, because side by side is the best way that young boys are able to like open up and talk about things. Um, and this is hard. This is a hard moment to the teenagers tend can often be reluctant to share those tiny details, as Sebastian was saying. And so what we do is we'll have students kind of brainstorm. We have this little 10 ideas in 10 minutes. We'll give this to students and ask just pick go write as much as you can about as many of these as you can in 10 minutes. Not any format. We can just do kind of dashes, anything like that. But the idea here is that instead of asking a very um, big ethereal question like, what inspires you? Where a kid might shrink from that because now they have to think that it needs to be something like, really grand. And now we've kind of repurposed these questions to be something like number one, write about something that keeps you up late or that you wake up early to do, right? And so now it's like, okay, something that they really enjoy. Instead of finding out having to like plumb the depths to pull this up, they're going to naturally think about that moment in time, that kind of spot in life. And so this is also something that we will send out post webinar so that your students can maybe use this to brainstorm. Another question, even if you're trying to kind of engage your student and get them thinking, is if you really knew me, you'd know, and just have them finish that, right? And then it's like really gonna flip it on them to, think about like that phrasing, and it just forces you to get that next level, right? Get a little bit deeper. Another thing that we're gonna share with everyone after this is all these words, but really these are attributes. One of the hardest things that students oftentimes have a hard time bragging about themselves, like highlighting the things that they want to share. So we try to do it a different way here, where we'll give them this list, and I'll say pick 10 words that like you would describe you, and then we say, okay, narrow it down to the five that are the best for you, and then narrow it down to the three that are the best for you. And in that process, they're really honing in on how they see themselves and sometimes even like if the student's struggling with that, I'll say, okay, what like imagine you're your best friend. Which ones would your best friend pick? Have them pick five. Which ones would your parents pick? Have them pick five. Are there any overlap? Right? Because sometimes really students can't see the things that they do the best. But from there, we can pull two, three, four of these attributes, and then we just ask for stories about them. Right? If a student says that they're imaginative, I will say, tell me a story of a time you were imaginative, right? And then it'll take us in this direction where now we're talking about an attribute that we would want to share with the admissions office. Whereas I would have never known to ask, hey, tell me a story about being imaginative, in the beginning of the conversation. So this is another good way to think about it and to think about the essay and the topic you want to write about instead of just starting with the sports hero story or the grandparents or the family values. Think about like the students themselves and what is not showing up on the transcript and what are the attributes that they really want to make sure that the person who is reading their application knows about them. So from here, then it's like maybe you have the idea, maybe it came up in the brainstorms, maybe it's one or two of these attributes that we want to bring into it, and so we have to then write the essay. So it's going to be a little bit more geared for the students themselves. But as a parent supporting them, then this is also like a useful framework in terms of what is a good essay. We've created an acronym here. So for us, the essay is emotion, surprise, stories, attributes, and yours. So on the next slide, there's a little breakdown of each of these. But the title of this webinar was making a standout essay. So part of that is just you know making good writing for your students and through the revision process, which students often don't do during the school year. That's where really you can pull out more vivid details, push their line of question or their line of thinking even more, ask like the why questions. So if we want to make a standout essay, you need to start with emotion. This is a lot of what Sebastian was talking about in terms of the specifics. And I love the Mother Teresa quote there. It really gets to human nature, and it's why if there's ever a charity looking for donations on commercials, it's one person that needs help. It's not 30 people that are need help or even 100. It's that one. The student needs to reflect that in the same way and tell their story and make it as specific as possible. In that, you want to coach them to have that hook in there so that it does connect to the reader as quickly as possible. So, what often happens is something like I worked hard through high school to get good grades. I made honors often, and many of my teachers commended the work I handed in. I also made honor roll several times throughout my 4 years. Right, students are going to undersell their accomplishments and then also just bury the lead of like what actually drove that. So it just becomes either a regurgitation of their resume or it's lacking the vivid details and imagery that makes that person come to life. So keep the emotion in the story. And so a sample of like how we can try to increase that is getting specific. And it's almost always what we're telling our students. Be more specific, be more specific. In this example, it just brings to life them working hard instead of just saying, oh, look, I got good grades. Now we have a story to tell, right? And so in this way, we're evoking certain emotions so that the reader's now connecting to the story. In this example, in the orange, right, that sentence there, it grabs you, right? There's like a what's going on? There's a shock there. It's like, wait, where is this going? It's going to keep someone like Sebastian, who's going to finish that paragraph now, right? He's intrigued. Where's this going? right? And then it also shows some so like the reader is going to admire the student for taking on the next step, like taking on independent work, talking with adults, being bold in that way, right? And so that's where we want to like connect with the reader in this way. Beyond that, we have to move on to the next one, which is super important for the hook. So the shock of like, I never thought I'd defend a bigot, right? That line, it's going to shock the reader. And so we always want to try to have something interesting to start the essay with that surprises the reader. I like the phrase, it breaks someone's guessing machine. It's a great way to think of the structure of your essay. Break the reader's guessing machine and then try to fix it. And then also, like it just makes for more interesting 650 words if you don't know where it's going, right? You need to continue reading to find out. That's why, mystery novels are still, hugely popular. The only thing you have to be careful of is to avoid gimmicks. You don't want to push too hard on this, and then it becomes, cliche or a trope. So on the next slide, we have an example of the one that we've kind of been building here. So in a small windowless room in a nondescript municipal building, I nervously dialed a lawyer's number to ask for help. How the heck did I end up here? I asked myself. Right, that line, if you start there, you're immediately thinking like, oh, this kid's in trouble with the law, right? Like he's going to be like, this would be a terrible topic to write about the time you got arrested, right? But in reality, right, we're gonna like surprise them and then like break the guessing machine and then fix it throughout the rest of the essay. The second one is actually one, sorry, if we can go back, one that I worked on, 5 years old, 6 years old now. So he's graduated from Penn State already. But it was just a really nice essay about his dad, the student's dad teaching him to do it right the first time, but we found the entryway, right? So it took that like cliche, like, oh, father son kind of moment, but we found the entryway into his hatred of snow days. And so in this case, we have a really interesting first line, and it breaks your guessing machine because students love snow days, right? And so why would a student now hate a snow day? And it just pulls you in and it's going to make you want to keep reading. All right. The key to all interesting, like memorable essays is a good story. It's just like it's so obvious, but we forget it all the time. We try to list accomplishments or just put as much information in as possible, and we forget that at the end of the day, we are telling a story. It's really easy because most kids are at least aware of the Star Wars kind of arc. It's a hero with 1,000 faces, but you could be Luke, right? Like be the underdog, but you're gonna need to be tested in a moment. You're gonna have a crisis of conscience. You're gonna have a moment of doubt. You're gonna face overwhelming odds and fail sometimes. That's okay. That's what makes interesting stories. The same character arc of Star Wars has been repeated again and again and again. And so it doesn't have to be a new story in terms of character development and arc. It just has to be a story that is like worth being told about you and your life. So and thinking of that in this example, right, where like we have that interesting hook, breaks the guessing machine, and then kind of finishing this off, it now builds into some like the details that make a really interesting story. And this example also connects with the A in the essay acronym, which is attributes. So here, like we want emotion, some surprise, definitely a story, and keeping in mind a story that's connected to those attributes, right? We threw up the list of like 25 attributes just to kind of get students flowing with that. But what the purpose of the college essay is to like highlight attributes that aren't in your transcript and isn't in your SAT or ACT score, right? It's missing from your portfolio. And so that's what we're looking for in this essay and building the story around that. So the attributes like we were talking about with imaginative, in this case, for the example we were just using for the stories and building out this idea of a student nervously dialing a lawyer's number, then builds in other attributes. So in this case, the reader, like Sebastian, as he's going through this first paragraph, is going to see the student as a hard worker, someone who's bold, calling, constitutional lawyers, seeing if he can get through, trying to get some help, on this process, and also solving problems. But he's nowhere in this essay is the student saying, I'm a hardworking student. I have courage. I'm, gonna solve problems. No, we don't want that. We want the story to speak to those attributes. All right. And the last part, the why, is to make it yours. All right. So for the personal statement, that yours means tell a real story. As Sebastian was hinting at, it doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't need to be the third installment of the Iron Man trilogy. I often tell this story as well when I was working with students on the essay. I led a trip of students when I was teaching in the classroom to China, and we had time to kill, so we were in one location, and we did a little competition of who can take the best photograph. And we left it, me and the other teacher left it really wide open like that. And we let the kids run around snapping photos, and they all had to like submit one to us. And they were trying to capture everything, all these like really big, big photos. And the winner is the one that went all the way up, went up close and saw something from a different angle than what we would see it from, right? And so that they took this and made it theirs in a way because only they were seeing it in that angle. Whereas like the big stuff, it kind of gets washed out. You don't see the details. Anyway, make the essay yours. So the authentic attributes, the real emotion, is where we want to see it. More importantly, this why is kind of serving double duty here. The yours is your path in this process is not going to just be the personal statement. So, if you joined us for some other webinars in the previous months, you'll have seen examples of the supplemental essays. And all of this still holds true for all of those supplemental essays. So they come in a couple different flavors. So essentially, there's the why this college essay. So an essay might ask you, like, why do you want to apply or why do you want to attend Marist College? Right? That part of it is going to see, do you really research? Do you know the school? Is there, what is there at the school? But then it's like, how can you present it? How can you make it a story? How can you make it yours? Not just regurgitating the facts. Marist knows that they have, like great athletic programs, a beautiful campus overlooking the Hudson, right? They know all that. You have to make it yours. So you have your why college essays. You also typically have your why major. So why do you want to major in this, right? And that's another one, another opportunity to make that story yours, unique to you through surprise, through emotion, through telling that story, right? And then the authentic aspects that make it why you want to major in that topic. Additionally, there's often an essay about community, and they're going to ask either talk about a community you're a part of, or maybe a community or like an obstacle in a community that you're a part of. So In that way, the kind of the same essay kind of acronym really works for the three major supplemental essays. And then on top of that, there's all these other unique one-offs or combinations of them. So you have your unique, like the Stanford roommate essay, which you're writing a letter to your roommate or your hypothetical roommate, if you were to get accepted. Other ones are 650 words, like at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, that combine why you want to go to that school and what do you want to study there, right? And so you're always trying to think about how can I enter this with breaking the reader's guessing machine and then telling that story. All right. So this is a helpful acronym. We'll send the this out in like replays and stuff like that. But the process is inherently kind of it's Socratic, right? It's dialogue. It's asking questions, hearing the student respond. We say this a lot with our college admissions work, is that the college admissions process is inherently self-reflective, right? It's that moment in time where students are going to start to look back at their college career or their high school career and say, who was I as a freshman? Who was I as a sophomore? And where have I grown? What parts of me have expanded and what parts have I shed? What have I left behind? Right? And it's also going to force them to look forward, right? Why do you want to study this? How will you contribute to the campus culture? Like these types of questions as well. So now they're going to be thinking these very big, big questions. So we help with this by having those kind of conversations with students, kind of sidestepping, the quick 5 minute frenzied conversations that I would have as a teacher in high school. Now we actually are able to sit for hours over the course of a summer exploring these questions on a much deeper level. Assigning the students work to kind of learn more about different universities, programs, and themselves. One of my favorite things that we do at Wagner Prep is that if any one of our advisors or tutors actually think that there's a book that can help the student and help them grow, they have carte blanche to send it to them. I just sent one of our students this year, this month, I sent him The Tao of Pooh, and it's like a retelling of the Tao Te Ching and like the ancient Chinese philosophy through like Winnie the Pooh stories. But he's a surfer and he's understanding that you got to go with the flow, but I want to give him more vocabulary than just go with the flow and let nature take its course. And so in this process, right, he's now learning more than just how to write a college essay. Anyway, so we help with students through the whole admissions process if that's something that you're interested in. We have a framework of explore, evaluate, and execute in that order. So the first step is always very exploratory. Even if you have a solid college list, it might be, maybe your major is undecided. Maybe you want to learn more about those programs. And so we are going to typically work with students through these three phases. And we start typically, with our college advising through the whole process, in June with our rising seniors, because as I was saying, you really want to get the essays written June, July, or Common App essay done by July. And so that August 1st, you're good to go. In addition to like the whole larger big process where we take you from the explore phase, building the college list, evaluating it, measuring it up, having the students explore, then we also do some support with just essays if that's something that you are looking for. We have that as well. So don't take it from us. We've worked with over 100 happy parents in the last I would say 2 years. We're happy to furnish referrals and recommendations from those parents, but just Google us, and you can see a lot of happy parents as well. Um, so
We've got some
let's
questions.
go to the questions.
Yeah. The first one is, do you recommend making drafts of several essays or focusing mainly on one and really like honing in on it?
It's a tricky question, right? Because we explored about, finding different topics and really honing in on that. But the danger here is ending up with three half essays through the summer, and then in October you have zero finished ones. Um, so my recommendation is your students should have one personal statement that they take through this process, draft after draft. Most of our students do that in several stages. The only multiple draft moment I would say is in the beginning. Rough sketch two or three or four ideas for a week or so, just enough to see which story really has legs. Because some ideas will feel like great in your head, but like really die on the page. I would pick the winner and never look back. But at the same time, I would record everything, right? As Mike says, if you have a list of, 15, 20 schools, that might end up being 15, 20, 25 supplemental essays. So that doesn't mean we discard topics completely. That means, record every iteration of all your drafts. I recommend doing it in one place. So you always have something to come back on. I would say hone in on the personal statement as early as possible, but, preserve the rest of your material for the supplementals.
And writing is a process, so students tend to not think of it in this way. We always say if you get a writing assignment in school, when we do more executive functioning, coaching, and things of that matter, it's three assignments. One writing assignment is three. It's the outlining and the research, like that is really the hardest work. Then it's the writing, and then it's the editing. And so students don't break it down into three. They just say, I have to write a paper. And this is why things get procrastinated on because then they're writing a paper, but they haven't written an outline or researched it appropriately. And so in this way, it's just the through that process, the best essay is going to come out. Oftentimes, it's in the third paragraph. Um, and another kind of anecdotal story here, but it works is sometimes students will have a lot to say and they try like there's a maybe there's a path to thread that needle of an essay that's kind of combining two ideas. You have to see, right? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it'll fall apart there. And then you just say, all right, we're going to focus on the top part or the bottom part and save the other one for the supplemental essays.
Great. I got sent another question privately, but feel free to drop them in the chat or send them to me. Is how like parents can best like if their students struggling with the essay, like how they can best help them.
So it depends how involved that you want to get and that you're allowed to get. I've had students that don't show their personal statement to their parents until they get accepted into college, because it is so personal and they want it their way and don't want that input. Um, if your student is struggling with ideation, with like the ideas, definitely use the attributes, use the brainstorming questions that we'll send out to kind of get things started. Uh, Oftentimes, it's the because it's such a big thing, it becomes like, oh, like, all right, I have to come up with some great idea. I have to do something grand. And so we want to make it as small of a task and as imperfect as possible to get started. And that's where kind of brainstorming in any format, that kind of thing, can really help. If it's like the essay's already like has a draft, and then you're revising it, use the essay framework, right? Is it hitting those notes? Is there strong emotion? We tend to in Wagner Prep, we will wait until the essay has a shape to write the intro. The intro is the hook, right? But if it in a 650 word essay, you don't always know where the essay is going. So you have to just get through the body, and then you can kind of understand, okay, how can we engage the reader that's going to make this maybe the structure circular or show that growth with a hook? How can I surprise the reader? So sometimes it can also be easier if a kid is stuck. Say, don't worry about the intro. Don't worry about the hook. Don't worry about any of that. Just write the essay, from the first body paragraph. Another thing, so it's again depending, and maybe with more specifics in the question I can answer it better. But if you take away like being perfect and just say just write, sometimes the 650 words can be the other thing that limits a kid's ability to get started. Last cycle, we had a student that was away at camp. He was always trying to write, but then like couldn't figure out how to get started, and it was just kind of like this slog. It was like pulling through. Finally, he got home, and I was just like, dude, just write, tell the story. Don't worry about anything. Paragraph. It doesn't even need paragraphs. Just get it on the page. He ended up writing 3,500 words, and then we went through it and we found the story in 3,500 words and edited it down together to 650 with a powerful opening hook, a nice narrative arc, and it was important for him to get that story out. So those would be three examples. I could go on for longer, but there's
Yeah.
other questions.
Well, the next question's actually touching on what you just were, which is any tips on how to get the most out of the personal statement within the word count because it's 650 words, it's tricky.
Yeah, and it only gets harder on the supplemental essay side because then you start getting into 300 words, 250 words, 150 words. Columbia has 100 word prompts for a few questions and 50 word prompts for a few more. So the students start to learn that the less you have to write, it's actually the more time it takes because you have to be really careful with like the diction and your word choice. In terms of how to get the most out of it, again, I'm going to kind of point to the backbone of this presentation, right? It's like the essay framework. So make sure your story has an emotional connection so that the reader connects with the author of the essay. Surprise them so that they continue reading. Uh, think about the attributes that you want to highlight, like in your student. So if their essay is clear that they're, really good at math, they've got great math scores, the quant side is clear through their extracurriculars, through they're going to have a math teacher writing their recommendation letter. Maybe you want to tell another story, right? And so, in terms of like how to make it get the most out of it, right? Is there another aspect of leadership that you can talk to in the personal statement? Where's the growth outside of purely academics? Sebastian, I don't know if I see you shaking your head. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I like everything. I like if I were to just give you a quick cheat code, I guess, is the idea of like specific words, especially detail. We've spoken a lot about how to get this rich, vivid detail. The idea that the words that you choose can, fulfill like a double duty, right? Think back on the example that we gave earlier, three words, right? Mortgage, Polish, 14. That those three words already carry the family history, responsibility, even humor, right? So that's why I call like an efficiency cheat code. So that specific detail can, replace a full paragraph of explaining. And to what Mike said, some of the last work that I do with my students is cutting the essay down, right? From 1,000 to the 650. That's almost always the final stage is removing words and making everything concise. And that comes after the detail has been extracted, right?
That's really helpful. Last question. We almost made it all the way through without talking about AI, which is such a hot topic for everyone always. How are I mean, obvious. What is our stance on AI and how kids should be using it? And if you guys want to touch briefly on how colleges are using it, and then if there's any last questions, feel free to message them to me.
Yeah, so the AI question, I'll give a short answer because otherwise it would be a whole entire webinar. The short answer is every college is has a different approach with this, but in general, the theme is AI generated college essays are frowned upon. They are running it through AI generation detection software. The idea is to avoid that. Now, of course, there's like exceptions to these rules, and it's like if you have no other way of getting support, is it better to like kind of be getting feedback from AI as opposed to nothing? Well, yes, because then you're using some revision and thinking about that. But use your resources around you, even if it's not your parents per se, but then I would say to students like use their teachers, counselors like get that support and feedback. But the last part of the essay framework, it's yours. So it's really important that it might sound nicer if you throw it into AI and try to get it streamlined, but it loses the you in that essay. And someone who reads lots of essays with students all the time, it's very easy to spot. So if I can do it and I'm not reading thousands of essays, the people who are reading thousands of essays are going to like notice and see all the same patterns, and then that essay is not going to speak for you in the way that you think it should. Sebastian, I don't know if you want to add anything. I probably could have
Yeah,
continued on.
totally. You're on the nose, I guess. Your short answer is perfect. It's like, the nuanced quick answer for me is there's a big difference between AI as your writer, right? We are against that. But AI as your audience, right? As a writer, it's like it can be valuable to test your ideas with it. Um, always, with the critical eye when you read it, right? So use it as an audience, train it as an audience, but we can sniff it out from miles away when we get presented AI paragraphs. And like Mike said,
Yes.
I don't even know what my old coworkers are doing with these essays nowadays, right?
Yeah, yeah, and in terms of like use it as an audience, you got to be careful because it's a very it's like playing your grandma in Monopoly when you're 7 years old. Like
Exactly.
she'll trade you Boardwalk and Park Place for whatever you want, you know. So remember that's also kind of built into the
Yeah.
programming. All right, so. AI is just like that can open a whole other can of worms. And also because it's evolving, like even like what it was last year during the admission cycle is not what it is now. Um, but the more more true to like the work that we do and like the moment and the purpose of the college essay is really this moment of self-reflection, introspection, and looking for the growth, right? Like having students reflect on how they've matured over the course of their high school career. And so, the questions we received about like how to make the most of it, uh, uh, on the human side, that's how to make the most of it, right? To have those conversations with your student, try to get them thinking in that way, and nudge them, give them any kind of resource that is important to you, maybe that they can use to kind of put words to the things that they're feeling, to be able to make the most of this process, and then in the long run, that's going to help their essay stand out. So, with that, oh, well, look at that, 8 o'clock on the dot. Um, yeah, give us, I guess one last. We could have done this on Mentimeter, but it's good in the chat as well. Hopefully, we say all of these things and we're living them every day. But what's the takeaway? What are people walking away with? Because that helps us understand what messages are getting through, and what is missing. So, if you could throw a sentence, something simple in the chat, like the thing you're walking away from after this hour, um, it would be really helpful. Throw it in the chat, and then um, if you want help through this process, The Megan is ready to hop on a call um, to talk about essays, college admissions counseling, and of course, if you need any academic tutoring, SAT, ACT prep, we're here for that as well.
All stories. It's a good takeaway.
Awesome. Stories. All right, that's it.
Yeah, I got sent to put your voice into the personal statement. And I was like,
Your voice, not
your voice.
AI's.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, there's the specific small stories. That is the key. If you're a student on this call, like start just trying to like notice the little things a little bit more. Kind of uh, yeah, keep an ear out for when you hear an interesting story or something that's said in an interesting way, and try to take that with you and write your own story. So. All right. And with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And feel free to send us an email with any follow-up questions. Have a good night, everyone.